Hey guys, one more on the video on the Inside Spurs show. Happy Saturday morning. Happy weekend to you all. Hope you are all looking forward to a good weekend. Obviously, plenty of football on today. There's some FA Cup, there's some Premier League, there's a Copa del Rey final. That's contentious with what's going on between Real Madrid and Barca. And obviously, tomorrow Spurs play against Liverpool. But in this video, we are talking about some transfer news because we have an update surrounding Atletico Madrid and a potential double raid for Bentancur and Romero. We're going to be talking about Matisse Tell potentially weighing up his future for next season. James Maddison potential future for next season. So plenty to get into and talk about. And you know, when we talk about these transfers, let's be very fair, consistent, and on point. We've always said, one, we do not know who the manager is next season, whether you're ange in or ange out. We do not know. Nobody knows, okay? In that regard, then, players being sold and players being bought are really irrelevant until we know that. Now, the thing is if a player is signed or sold before the manager comes in, then you know the manager doesn't have much of a say in terms of transfers. You know, and don't get me wrong, I understand that scouts, data systems, chief execs, all that stuff have a huge say in transfers. And then the manager should kind of also go, I didn't really like him as a human, so maybe I don't want him here. And they should have a say in it. And it comes down to also taking up buy options, hence why we talk about Tell. But let's start with Romero and let's start with Bentancur. So it came from Tom Allnut, who has said Atletico are interested in Bentancur as well as Romero this summer. The Tottenham players are considering their options amid uncertainty over Postecoglou. Well, that's kind of fascinating. You know, obviously we had the Romero interview that came out where he didn't really say a lot. Obviously, Spurs fans twisted his words to make it sound like he had basically told us all to F off. It wasn't the case. You know, and actually, that's what even Ange said. Ange said he didn't really do anything wrong. He didn't say anything wrong. He like us are focusing on the rest of the season. We still have an opportunity to do something in Europe. And I agreed with him. Again, whether you're Ange in or Ange out, it's quite factually obvious to see what Romero said. It's quite factually obvious to see he's focused on the rest of the season. He hasn't spoken to his agent towards a move next season. So, you know, obviously you're going to get Spurs fans, they're going to get annoyed because for some reason, I think Spurs fans are easily annoyed by things, but he didn't really do anything wrong. Okay. He was asked a question. He answered the question. He answered it honestly. And then within that honest answer, he didn't really say anything that was outlandish. Now, let's take this on face value. Okay. Like I said, we don't know the manager's next season. So we don't know what's going on. It could be Ange. It could be Frank. It could be Iraola. It could be anyone. Now, I think Iraola is going to stay at Bournemouth, but we'll come to that in a minute. If we take it on face value that Atletico are going to make a double move for Romero and Bentancur, and they still might, regardless of manager, they might still try and do it. Their success in that is a different story. There's a couple of things that I took away from this. Number one is Bentancur still hasn't signed a contract, which we talked ages ago that, the contract was really close. He's going to get a new contract. And that was a while ago now. Now, I was at the gym earlier and I was thinking about it. I said, even if they, in their minds, in terms of Tottenham higher ups, wanted to hold off the news because things are a bit toxic and they you know, people would take it the wrong way. Actually, it's now gone the opposite route because people are now going, hang on, now this is something that's going to be looming over us for the rest of this season. You know, I talked about the fact that we have too many negative things coming out of the club at the moment ahead of the next 2 weeks, a humongous 2 weeks of football for Spurs that actually we want to look at with really, really big positive hearts and the hope of we're going to Bilbao in less than a month, you know. Having Bentancur's contract, if he is getting a new deal, having it done, just announce it. Then it's one less thing for everyone to think about. And yes, maybe does he deserve it or not? I don't know. But the longer you leave it now, the worse it's going to get because it's just more and more articles surrounding Atletico's interest in Bentancur. Now, I don't know. Maybe he's not getting a new contract and that's why the rumbling's out there. Is this from Bentancur's camp leaking it out there? Is it Bentancur's camp who's spoken to Atletico and Atletico have leaked out there? I very much doubt it's Spurs' side of things leaking it out that Atletico still want to sign him and still want to sign Romero. I just don't get it. Like I said, it's April 26th. On the 1st of May, we start a two-legged campaign against Bodo Glimt in the Europa League to go to the Europa League final, to win a Europa League final, to get Champions League football for next year. Which, by the way, Ange said something that I mentioned a few days ago. He said something yesterday, which was interesting, saying, fifth gets Champions League football. Wasn't much. There was a clamour over it last season, and we didn't get it. And if we get it while winning the Europa League, and it's like, okay, Ange, don't disagree with you, bud. I don't disagree with you. But the fact that this is coming out, it's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, let's say maybe there's a potential that Bentancur and Romero are proper Ange guys. They love Ange. I think they should like Ange. We know Romero does. He's spoken very, very, very openly about how much he likes Ange. Bentancur, I think he had a lot of support from Ange and a lot of support from the club going through what happened from last summer and how it affected his season and how he stuck by him through big injuries and things like that. You'd think Bentancur probably likes Ange, to be fair. I'm not saying he has to worship his feet, but I'm just again, we're talking about different avenues. If Ange was to go, would they go, well, actually, yeah, we don't want to have to go through another manager. Just get us gone. We don't have to go through Conte to Stellini to Mason. Romero's like, I don't have to go through a Nuno to a Conte to Stellini to Mason to Ange. I mean, Romero's had how many managers he had in his time here? Maybe they're like, do you know what? If we went to Atletico Madrid, Simeone's going absolutely bloody nowhere. We know he's there for as long as he wants. We're playing Madrid. South Americans and Atletico Madrid go hand in hand really well. It makes a ton of sense. And also, if they're going together, those two get on really well. If they're going together, it makes sense for those two as well. So I can see why. Now, what would the figure look like if you were to sell both? Again, we take this on face value. We're just speculating. If you're selling both of those guys, and I'm keen to know what you think as well, because this is a really fascinating thing where you've got your starting centre-back and your starting number 6 being sold. The spine of your team is being removed. I'm thinking, people said, you can get 80 million for those two. And it's like, if we're getting 80 million for those two, we have failed. We have failed to recoup credible money. 80 million is the floor for me. It's the absolute floor because I think Romero is probably worth about 80 million. And I'm not saying Bentancur is going to be worth 40, 50 million. He's got 1 year left on his contract. For me, we bought him for about 20 million. I think it was at 17, 18 million we bought him for. So let's call it just 20. Just throw 20 on top, 100 million. I don't think that's crazy. And even if you go Romero's 75, Bentancur 25, okay, fine. The reason why I don't think Bentancur is going to be much more than 20 is because Højbjerg is going to be sold this summer for it's 12.5, rising to 17.5 through add-ons, which are going to be quite easy to attain. Basuma is probably going to be about 10 to 15 million pounds as well. When you're in your late 20s, you've got 1 year left on your contract. There's not the ability to drive huge fees for. Now, had he had 2 years left on his contract, Bentancur, you probably do make about 30 million. But because of that, you know what I mean? I think you get 20 million. And let's say you even get 70 million for a merit, it's 90 million. The 90 million is a minimum for me. Especially if they're going to the same club. It's easy transfer to work out. You go, right, we want this fee. This is how we value him. This is how we value him. Let's talk. And again, if Daniel Levy is valuing Romero just last summer, 1 summer ago, at 150 million, there's no way he's valuing him at 60 million the next summer. He's not dropping 90 million in 1 season. He's not. Player values don't do that unless they're absolutely awful. And Romero's not. We've seen recently that Romero's not. So, yeah, for me, 100 million is about right. And the thing is, if you are selling them, what are you doing with that money? I would expect all of that to be reinvested back into the playing staff. And what I mean by playing staff is, I mean players, by the way. I watched Betis 2 nights ago. So I actually saw Gianni Cardoso. Looks decent. Then again, they were also playing bottom of the league, who are basically a Southampton, not very good. So I didn't take too much away from it. Um, what again? It's would the new manager want Cardoso? If he doesn't want Cardoso, you don't sign Cardoso. If the new manager doesn't want Tell, you don't sign Tell. That's the way we should be doing this. Obviously, Spurs will go, we're going to sign who we want to sign. You work with what we're going to do. It's not gonna function the way we hoped it to, because competent clubs don't do that. By the way, good clubs don't do that. Spurs, on the other hand, twerk about it and go, look at our club signing. Look at our club signing, and everyone goes, okay, yeah, all right. So like the big six. There's only like one other team that does the club signings, and they're also below mid-table in the league right now. The other ones, yeah, you might stockpile some talent, but it's based on who the manager wants. They support every manager. I think Liverpool this summer are in for a hell of a summer. Liverpool this season have been solid. I think the Premier League, in terms of the top end, haven't been as good this year. I think they're going to really go for it next summer, because I think they're looking at it going, how do we know City are going to be any good? Arsenal, Arsenal will make some noise in the Premier League and then falter off towards the end, because there's evidence of it now. We're in a great spot. Okay, we got some experience through like Salah and Van Dijk, but we're just going to keep adding stockpiles of talent. So when they do move on, we're ready to continue to compete. That's competency. As much as we all like Jed Spence was bought as a club signing. Conte did not want Jed Spence. Now, obviously, Conte, in terms of this, has been proved wrong. Spence is good enough to play in the Premier League, and he would have been good enough in Conte's system, absolutely. But at the end of the day, he wasn't what Conte wanted, and you're supposed to buy what the manager needs and wants. Conte wanted to buy a Bastoni, a Gavadio, and we wound up with a Longley. So you are supposed to back the manager in what he wants. I'm not saying that you have to spend 500 million, not at all. But you back the manager in what he wants. And we didn't back Harry. We didn't truly back Poch. I mean, we went summers without buying a player for Poch. Oh, we're getting the stadium. Still could buy a player or two, that's for sure. Conte, we didn't fully do it. Mourinho, we didn't fully do it. And there's evidence where teams that did it for those sort of managers had success. We didn't, and we still demanded the same success. It's not how it works, Chief, So look, there's that on those two. The article still goes on to talk about Matisse Tell. Okay. Now, Matisse Tell is an interesting one, because obviously there's a buy option. We talked about the fact that Spurs don't really want to take up the buy option. They want to negotiate a bit, bring it down a little bit. Maybe the structure of it looks a little bit different. X, Y, and Z. It's common with buy options. I expect Girona to do it with Bryan Hill this summer. I don't think they're taking up the 15 million euro option of Bryan Hill. I think we're going to drop the price on him a little bit. We're going to work with Girona to get a solid structure payment style. Everyone's happy. Brian looks happy in Girona. They like Brian. We don't mind letting him go. Everyone wants to do this deal. Just get it done, sort of thing, right? And I think they will. Is there a situation Manor Solomon with Leeds United? Leeds are coming up to the Premier League next season. That's a guarantee, by the way. They are still fighting for the Championship title. They're level with Burnley. I don't think Leeds play today. I think Leeds maybe play tomorrow. But they're coming up to the Premier League. They're going to have some money to spend. Financial fair play shouldn't be an issue for them next season. It would have been if they stayed in the Championship, hence why I think they had to have a bit of a cash in last summer. This summer coming, I think they'll be able to spend, because they'll obviously have the TV revenue and things like that from the Premier League. And they'll want to probably keep Manor Solomon. Well, if so, Manor probably doesn't mind going back there, because he's going to be back in the Premier League with a team that he knows, a system that he knows, a club that he knows. Spurs probably want to take some money and cash in. And again, the next manager, if it's not Ange, the next manager might really want Manor Solomon, and he won't move, and he'll stay at Spurs potentially. There's also that. But obviously, there's a situation with Tell and his buy option. Okay, now it's obviously something that I think Spurs want to take up, but the article does go and says Matisse Tell's future is particularly uncertain, given Postecoglou was instrumental in persuading the 19-year-old to move to Spurs. Um, Ange said in February that he will be a Tottenham player. I think he'll show everyone that he's going to be a Tottenham player in the next 6 months. I didn't bring him here for 6 months. Spurs remain keen to take up the option to sign Tell permanently, but at a reduced price, with the club planning to renegotiate with Bayern. Um, that's expected. It does go on to say a key factor could be qualification of the Champions League. Blah 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 blah. That is just article filler nonsense. We already know that if you have the Champions League, you can spend more than if you didn't have the Champions League. It's like me saying to you, "There's a Gareth Bale shirt behind me there, and there's a sign that's of the channel name here." It's obvious. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to work that one out, right? Now, I think Spurs and Bayern probably both want to do the deal, but Tell also has to want to do the deal. He has to say it's not just they're not commodities footballers. You don't just go, we want you gone, sell. We're going to sell you over here. No, footballers are going to go, no, you have a contract with me. I can say no. Look at Richarlison. There's interest in Richarlison being sold by Spurs. Richarlison went, I want to stay. So there's that. I think there's a lot of players in that squad that was signed because they wanted to come because of Ange. There's a lot of them have said, "Oh, I signed because of Ange." There's a lot of them in the squad that actually really like Ange. There's going to be some players in the squad that maybe aren't as keen on him, and I totally get that. But players like Danso, Gray, Romero, Mickey, Tell, Bergval, even Kulu, Sonny, all these guys are very much like, we really like Ange. We want to play for him. We want to work hard for him, but also at the same time, as much as you guys may really want Ange as players, the success has to be there. And totally get Premier League not good enough this year. Now, yes, okay, there's factors that go into it. It's not just Ange's rubbish. And if you think it's just because Ange is rubbish, then you truly just do not understand how the human body works. And that's fine. I'll send you a textbook that you can learn out of. Injuries are a thing. And recuperating from injuries, even though you are deemed fit, doesn't mean you are 100%. If you didn't understand that or know that, it's because you've never had an injury. Okay. I can promise you, having had even a small injury, it takes you a little while to get going. I've also had a massive injury, and it takes you months and months and years to get yourself sorted. But Ange does hold some blame. Absolutely. There's no denying that. He holds some blame. Like I said, the medical team holds a lot of blame. The scouting, the data science, the higher ups, the playing staff as a whole, they all have to hold blame. Now, they can all hold some credit if they're holding that Europa League trophy at the end. And I will give, I will give Ange credit. I will give players credit. I'll give them all credit because they'll have deserved it. You've won a trophy. Like I said, there's managers that we've had in the last 15 years that only no, none of them have won it. I've just clocked. It's been more than 15 years. None of them worked. None of them worked in terms of winning trophies. So they will deserve the credit to do so. Now, being the domestic form hasn't been good. We did all right in the Carabao Cup. We had a deep Carabao Cup run, and I do genuinely think had we had, let's say, 3 or 4 fitter players, that I think we would have given Liverpool probably a bigger go of things. Again, it doesn't help that Van Dijk can just hit people the way he wanted to. See Richarlison's face, but regardless, Richie gets injured in that game. That's not going to help, is it? It's another injury. So, having 12 players out at the time, yeah, of course, you're not going to it's not going to be easy. And like I always made a joke, I mean, you look on the bench, how many of those players on the bench can legally buy me a beer other than Fraser Forster? Take him out of it. Maybe one other player can buy me a beer on the bench. The rest of them are sort of 16, 17-year-olds. Of course, you're not going to have success. You're not going to have success. But at the same time, adjustments need to be made. And you won't be able to make a lot. I'm not denying it. You won't be able to make a lot, but you'll be able to make some. So look, on that side of things is the league campaign has been what the league campaign has been. You can't change it. Wherever we are, 15th, 16th, whatever, I don't care. It is what it is right now. Okay. Spurs aren't making European football this season in the league. They won't make the Champions League, they won't make the Europa League, and they won't make the Conference League. But they can still make the Champions League, which is still bonkers to say. And you still get reporters going, it's not fair. Why do they get Champions League football? It's like, because it's been like that for ages. Did Spurs complain last season when they didn't get Champions League football finishing fifth? Even this season, everyone will. No, we got on with it. Chelsea winning the Champions League knocked us out of the Champions League. We got on with it. It's happened to us so many times where we've been screwed. It's the way the trophy system works. If Spurs wins that trophy or Man United win that trophy, doesn't matter if they finish anywhere between 12th and 17th, guess what? They'll see you in the Champions League next year. That's the way the cookie crumbles. So if you're one of those people that are moaning and complaining about it, go outside, touch some grass, and get some fresh air because you're a bit of an odd sock, all right? But there's still opportunity for Spurs to get Champions League football, and it will make a huge impact on the summer transfer market. It might make an impact on your next manager, regardless if it's Ange or not. Maybe, your next manager without Champions League football is a Thomas Frank, for example, and you think that's not too bad. He's a good manager, good man manager, pragmatic, blah blah blah. But if you get Champions League football next season, let's say Ange goes, look, it's been a really horrific 12 months. I've been called every name under the sun. It's a pretty toxic atmosphere. I said I'd win something in my second year. I've done that. I'm going to leave at an all-time high. That some of the great managers Spurs have had in the last 15 years have not had the ability to do is leave on a trophy win. I'm going to do that. I know that then my market as a manager will be quite large because I'm a European trophy winner. And how many managers can say that? But in turn, your next manager might look at Spurs and go, Champions League football, top six club, should have money to spend and spend it wisely. I say should, that's obviously the caveat. Yeah, I'm interested. Maybe you then get Romero going, actually, yeah, I would like to stay, and Bentancur, if they really like Bentancur, maybe signs that new deal and all those things go into it. But a lot of the transfer rumors that we talk about let's be real. Until we have concluded this season, we see how the cards fall. We see, are we a Champions League team or not? It's weird to say that you're one or the other. Normally it's like, oh, you might finish the Europa, you might finish the conference. It's Champions League football or not now because of the Europa. Let's be real. If that's the case, we need to see what the campaign finishes like. We'll know either on the 8th of May that we don't have Champions League football because we've lost over the two legs to Bodo Glimt, or we'll know on the 21st of May, regardless of if we win or not, that we have it or not. And then in turn, as soon as that happens, the summer transfer market planning must start because you've only got one more game after that, which is Brighton at home. You need to just start planning for the future of that summer transfer market, regardless of Champions League football, regardless of if you don't have Champions League football, because at the end of the day, other teams would have started doing that. If it's when you're looking at a new manager, you start talking to agents there and then, And even if Ange was to get to Europa League final and lose, you might as well just say, you'll manage Brighton. Your manager gets Brighton anyway, because it's one more game. What's the point of changing for one game? Mason isn't going to be your manager anyway going forward, so who the hell cares? Do that and we'll talk after the game. But if you know you're moving on from him, start those conversations. So, like I said, when people tell you, oh, a lot of the future depends on the Europa League campaign, but there's this. And it's like, ignore, but there's this, and just say, as you, the consumer, and me, the producer of, well, not the producer, I'm the reporter of the producer, to say, until Spurs' Europa League campaign has finished, regardless if it's the 8th of May or the 21st of May, until that's finished, we have no idea, and nor do those reporters, can I say, have any idea what the summer transfer market and what the summer plans are for Spurs. That's why I ignore half the crap that you see. Right, let's finish off with the last bit, and it's James Maddison flavoured news. Apparently, TBR Football saying that James Maddison is more likely to stay at Tottenham this summer if Ange Postecoglou leaves. That's a hell of an attitude to have. And it's a hell of an attitude to have if he was to stay. So if Ange's here next season and Madison wants to leave, okay, you just get on with it. No player is bigger than the club. Like if Romero wants to leave, you let Romero go. Simple as that. If Bentancur wants to leave, you let Bentancur go. If someone wants to leave, you let someone go. No player is bigger than the club. If Ange was to stay and Madison goes, I don't want to be here anymore, absolutely, James. Speak to your agent, find yourself a new club, mate. It's different if it's Harry bloody Kane, because you start to go, oh, he's the world's best striker. We probably should bend over backwards a little bit for him. You know what I mean? So, look, I don't think, for the amount of people that think Ange and James have issues, I don't think for a second they have the issues that people think they do. I would not interact with someone the way those two interact if I had an issue with someone. If I had an issue with someone, I just don't speak to them. I don't interact with them. I just stay away from them. I don't see that. I've seen countless bits of evidence that it's not that sort of situation. So, again, in this regard, it's obviously going to depend massively. It's going to depend massively on the rest of the season. Until we know the Europa League and the conclusion of that, then we will know what maybe happens with Ange. Then we know what happens with the playing staff. But until that Europa League situation concludes, the rest of it, it's dominoes. Until we knock that one domino over, then the other dominoes will start to fall. Well, let's get to that first domino first. You know what I mean? But I'm interested to know what you guys think. Obviously, I have been reading your comments as I've been live. I do promise. I'm not ignoring you when I've been rambling. I see everything for the most part. All right. I do see everything. And there's a bunch of legends in the chat, like always, like Graham and Spurs and Glenn and Sean. Sean, I know you're from Vietnam, big man. Don't worry. I got you. And Boris and Jazz and Hawkeye, Peter, Janice. Faz is here. Faz doesn't normally make the live. So Faz, there you go. Faz, have yourself a thumbs up. You're welcome. Marshall's here. OG Callum Roach. I see you all. Don't you worry. I see you all. But look, and Chris, not forgetting Chris. Don't worry, Chris. I see you. But I'm interested to know what you guys think down below, because it's a fascinating time. And Scott, obviously, Scott. Come on, we all know Scott. But it's a fascinating time, really, going into the summer and how dramatic the change could be. Champions League or no Champions League, we're talking, serious money difference. That's why all the big teams want to be in the Champions League, because the money is ridiculous. It's not just the fact that you get a guaranteed 4 home games every season due to the league phase. If you make the playoffs, that's an extra home game. If you win the playoffs, you're guaranteed an extra home game. So you've got 6 home games potentially. If you go far in there, like you look at Arsenal this season, you think they got the 4 home games. They then win against PSV. There you go. That's 5th home game. They then obviously knock out Real Madrid. That's 6th home game. They've got PSG at 7 home games. You then get to charge more on your sponsorships. You get European Champions League TV money. You get all of those things that go into it. It's not just the revenue you make from doing well in there. If you get in there, crazy money. If you do well, crazy money. But it's also game day revenues. It's sponsorships. It's all those things that equate for hundreds of millions of pounds. That's why everyone wants to be in it. And so, like I said, winning the Europa League, bear in mind, we've got revenue from the Europa League this season. If you think about last season, we didn't have any European football. This season, we'd have earned loads more money because you've got, like I said, game day. We earn loads of money on game day at Spurs. It's TV rights, it's sponsorships, also all those things that everything just goes up that little bit more. But it's night and day towards the Champions League, because it's also the revenue for, if you do well in it, if you win it, that's big money as well. So that's why everyone wants to be in it. And so, like I said, winning the Europa League will give Spurs a huge amount more of ability to do things with it. So we'll wait and see on that side of things. Ed, how are you? We'll sort of see. But look, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Go enjoy the rest of your mornings, your afternoons, your evenings, wherever you are in the world. And I'll speak to you tomorrow to give me my last minute thoughts ahead of Liverpool tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Take care. Peace.